Where you want it?
Bay 12, please.
Hello there, Marvel fans, and welcome back to another Bay 12 video review. And today we are reviewing the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 set of figures. Not just the wave with the Cosmo Build-A-Figure and the bonus figure, but also the Deluxe Groot figure as well. So in this video, this is going to be a little bit of a long one. We are going to be reviewing the full set of figures and building the Build-A-Figure rather than split this up into several other smaller videos, which is going to be kind of fun. It's been a little while since we've done just a full-on, full wave or full set of figures review. So we have Crowlin, Mantis, Drax, Groot, StarLord, Rocket, Nebula, and Adam Warlock, who's just a little bit out of frame because there's so many figures here I couldn't quite fit them all together in frame, and that's a lot. There are so many figures, so we're going to go ahead and get right to it, starting with StarLord. And here is StarLord in his windowless packaging. You got a pretty good image of the figure with his two blasters there on front. On the side, you've got a good image of StarLord as seen in the movie. And on the back, you've got a cool image of the figure once again with his blaster pistols. And you can see Cosmo as well as the figures that come with Build-A-Figure pieces for her. And StarLord is the one figure out of the regular wave who does not come with a Build-A-Figure piece for Cosmo. Although, with the amount of pieces that there are to assemble Cosmo, he totally could have. And here is StarLord right out of the packaging. And this is a really good StarLord figure. And I gotta say, talking about this wave and the movie, of course, I really liked seeing them in actual Guardians of the Galaxy's uniforms this time, and all of the figures look very good, including StarLord. I gotta say, this is probably the best Chris Pratt likeness that Hasbro has done so far. This figure is fully articulated, head is on a ball joint, forward and back neck joint, fully articulated shoulders, upper bicep, double jointed elbows, wrist joints, waist, ab crunch, hips, upper thigh, double jointed knees, and there is a swivel joint just below the knee at the top of the boot, and ankle joints. Overall, this is a really cool take on StarLord. Not my favorite StarLord figure because honestly, as much as I'm glad that we finally got the Guardians uniforms, I like the Ravager trench coat look more. I also don't like his new pistols as much. And yes, these blaster pistols are pretty screen accurate to how they look in Volume 3, but I like the two-barreled pistols where you had barrels on the top and the bottoms that he had in the first couple parts of Guardians of the Galaxy. Just a little bit more. They looked cooler. And my only other gripe is there's nowhere to holster them on the figure. He doesn't have the side holsters anymore, so you can't just peg his blaster pistols on his hips like you could on the earlier versions of StarLord. And I don't recall him putting them on his hips very much in Guardians Volume 3, but I guess that just means I'm going to have to go watch that movie again, which that's okay by me because it was awesome. Next up, Rocket. So there is a cool image of Rocket with his cannon there on the front, which is a very similar cannon to the one he had in Guardians Volume 1. The mold is just a recast of the cannon that came with the Guardians Volume 1 Rocket almost 10 years ago, just in solid black plastic this time. I kind of wish they just re-released the same weapon rather than just not painted at all this time. Much like Peter, this is an entirely new figure, an all-new mold where Rocket is in his Guardians uniform. So pretty cool image of the figure there on the front. You got a cool image of Rocket as seen in the movie on the side. On this side, you get to see Cosmo in the list of characters that come with her Build-A-Figure parts. On the back, you got another image of Rocket holding his cannon, and then there's the Build-A-Figure piece he comes with of Cosmo, which is, of course, the torso. And here is Rocket out of the packaging, and this is probably also the best Rocket that they've done so far. But that said, the other Rockets, the earlier releases of Rocket were also very good, very articulated, and had pretty decent detail. This one just is a little bit better, especially in the face. They definitely got that face detail really, really good on this version. Head is on a ball joint. His jaw does not open or close, unfortunately. Fully articulated shoulders. No upper bicep, but you do have elbow joints, wrist joints, upper waist, hips, upper thigh, single jointed knees, ankle joints, and his tail is also articulated, which is very nice. Which again just leads me to what the heck happened with Howard the Duck, Hasbro, because this character is even smaller than Howard the Duck was, and he's totally and fully articulated, as are the other versions of Rocket from the MCU and Marvel Legends. So what in the heck happened with Howard the Duck? Now, I don't really need to get into the Howard the Duck rant again, but that said, his lack of articulation is even more unacceptable, all things considered here. Here is that awesome cannon he comes with once again, and I really love the design of his shoulder cannon that he had in Guardians Volume 1, and I'm glad they brought it back for this figure, but again, I just wish they actually painted it like they did with the Guardians Volume 1 release, or at least cast it in silver plastic rather than solid black, because it looks better the other way, in my opinion. He can, of course, hold his shoulder cannon there, and it looks so very awesome. Next up, Drax. And Drax also looks very good. Another totally new mold for this character, with the exception of the hands and his boots, I think. But the face sculpt is definitely better than some of the earlier releases of Drax. He also, of course, comes with his daggers, a piece to Cosmo there. On this side of the box, you got a good image of Drax as he appears in the movie. On this side of the box, you can see the list of figures that come with pieces of Cosmo in this wave. And that's pretty much it for the packaging. And here is Drax out of the packaging. Nice and beefy looking. He is very, very large. And I love how he looks next to StarLord and how very different these molds are. Because Hasbro really could have cheaped out and use the same mold for either figure since their uniforms are so similar, and I'm so happy they didn't, because Drax is a good amount bigger than StarLord, so it would have been a real shame had Hasbro cheaped out, but luckily they didn't, and we got a whole new figure out of it, and he does look really great in the suit. So there is that face sculpt, really, really good likeness to Dave Bautista. Very awesome there. You got the Guardians crest there, the little red accents on the suit. Not as many on his back, unfortunately, and they do kind of stop right here on the thigh, where definitely you can see it's supposed to connect and the pattern of red is supposed to continue. And unfortunately, they also did that on the StarLord figure as well, which is kind of a shame, but not the end of the world, I guess. He can, of course, wield his twin daggers that he's had since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, or you can have them holstered in his boots, just like the earlier releases of Drax since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. He is fully articulated, head is on a ball joint, forward and back neck joint, fully articulated shoulders, in and out, upper bicep, double jointed elbows, wrist joints, ab crunch, waist, hips, upper thigh, double jointed knees, and ankle joints. Overall, while this isn't my favorite version of Drax, I do love seeing him in this uniform, and I'm glad we got a totally new figure out of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Next up, we've got Nebula, and Nebula also looks good. I gotta say, this is probably the best Marvel Legends Nebula, at least based off of her appearance in the main MCU timeline so far. Really cool, awesome accessories, and there is a good image of her there on the front. There's a good likeness. There's a good image of her based off of her appearance in the movie on the side. On the back, you can see her and her awesome accessories. She not only, of course, comes with the blaster pistol that she's had since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, because that's when her first figure was released, but also she comes with this cool little cannon here, a Build-A-Figure piece to Cosmo. On this side, you can see Cosmo and the list of figures that come with BAF pieces for Cosmo, and that's pretty much it. And here is Nebula right out of the packaging, and just like the rest of the figures so far, this is a totally new figure. Now, the head sculpt is kind of similar to the earlier release of Nebula from Guardians Volume 2 with some minor paint changes. However, that face sculpt, much like the rest, is very, very good. Very screen accurate and a good likeness to Karen. Hasbro has gotten better and better as the years go by. You can easily see the progress when you stand a figure side by side with a previously released counterpart, the improvement that they have made over the years. If you can say anything else, you can definitely say their face sculpts have greatly improved. Fully articulated head is on a ball joint, forward and back neck joint. Fully articulated shoulders, upper bicep, double jointed elbows, wrist joints, upper torso, hips, upper thigh, double jointed knees, swivel joint just at the top of the boot, just below the knee, and ankle joints. She also, aside from coming with her blaster pistol here and her really cool space rifle cannon thing, comes with a swappable hand that is this really cool sword, just like she has in the movie. And that is so cool. I'm so glad they included this attachment because it just looks awesome with her holding this. Now, I wish she came with another swappable hand for her right hand so that you could have her blaster pistol and or her rifle in her hand while she has this really cool sword arm going. But regardless, it still looks really cool. Next up, we have Mantis. Mantis is a little bit more unremarkable when it comes to this wave, mostly because she's the only figure in this wave who doesn't really come with anything. She doesn't have any accessories whatsoever, which is kind of a shame. But you have a good image of the figure there on the front of the box. On the side, there is a picture of Mantis as she appears in the movie. On the back of the box, you have an image of the figure once again and the Build-A-Figure part she comes with. And on the side of the box, there is, of course, Cosmo and the list of figures that come with her Build-A-Figure pieces. And that's pretty much it for the packaging. And here is Mantis out of the packaging. Like I said, not very remarkable just because of how simple this figure release is. Would have been cool if she came with something. I mean, there could have been a few different options of different accessories that she could have come with from the movie, but the least of which could have been some swappable hands, so we at least have some different hand gestures for the character, or a swappable head where she has a different facial expression or something. I will say one of the cool features of this version of Mantis is A, that face sculpt looks very good, and so did the Build-A-Figure from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. B, it's very nice that we have a Mantis figure in mass retail now instead of the now very valuable Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 Build-A-Figure. And I also like that on the top of her antennae, they painted them white a little bit so you've got that kind of glowing effect when she's using her powers. However, they didn't paint the underside, so they don't really match. Only the top got painted, which is kind of strange. But it is what it is. Regardless, head is on a ball joint, fully articulated shoulders in and out, upper bicep, double jointed elbows, wrist joints, upper torso, hips, upper thigh, double jointed knees, and ankle joints. And then, of course, you've got that upper boot swivel joint as well. I will say, and yes, it still kind of works here just because they have a very similar build, but this is the first instance where we have a heavy reuse of an existing mold. Mantis and Nebula overall have the exact same body mold here. The biggest differences being the left arms, where Mantis has symmetrical arms and Nebula doesn't, and the head and neck joint. Other than that, these molds are exactly the same figure. Not really an issue because, like I said, they have very similar builds and they're also wearing a uniform, so you would want them to kind of look similar. And in the suits, their bodies do look kind of similar on screen, but like I said, with Hasbro saving money by reusing a mold like this, I kind of feel like we should have gotten some more accessories with Mantis over here, especially since Nebula came with all of the accessories and was really awesome. Next, we have Crowlin. Oh, I've been wanting a Crowlin pretty much since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, and I definitely really wanted a Crowlin after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I'm so glad we got him for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So there he is. As you can see, he took up Yondu's fin, carried on Yondu's legacy as the next archer, and he looks awesome. So there's an image of the figure on the front. On the side, you got an image of Crowlin as he appears in the movie. On the back, another image of the figure, his accessories, and the Build-A-Figure piece he comes with. And on this side right here, there is Cosmo and the list of figures that come with her pieces. And that's pretty much it for Crowlin's packaging. And here is Crowlin out of the box, and Crowlin looks great. I love that he's still in the Ravager uniform. I like that he didn't just switch over to the Guardians uniform, even though he was definitely a member of the team at that point in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That head sculpt looks really good. That's a great likeness to James Gunn's brother, Sean Gunn, who has been in pretty much every single one of James Gunn's movies to my knowledge. I can't think of a movie that James Gunn has done that his brother didn't appear in. At the very least, doing mocap for some of the various characters in James Gunn's movies. He is fully articulated, head is on a ball joint, fully articulated shoulders, upper bicep, double jointed elbows, wrist joints, upper torso, hips, upper thigh, double jointed knees, ankle joints, and that's pretty much it for articulation. He does come with a couple of cool accessories. He comes with this little dagger, this little knife here, which you can holster on his back, which is an interesting place to keep a knife. But I guess if you need some good quick reach, yeah, I guess that's a good place to quickly reach it. And he comes with the same arrow that the Yondu figure came with from the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 wave. And that's really cool also. And just like with the Yondu figure, you can take it and just plug it into the holster down here. And then just have it flying around when he whistles like an angel. Or at least tries to whistle like an angel. Overall, Crowlin's really cool. Another really awesome new and original figure. And I'm glad we finally got him. Although I gotta say, one of the issues I had with this figure, which is one of the same issues I had with the Yondu figure, is I wish he came with an arrow without the little flying red effect. Also, it's really cool that we get this version of the arrow, but it would have been nice to have a version of the arrow that we can just have holstered in its little holster right here, and, you know, whooshing around as arrows do when you whistle, as you well know, I'm sure. Next, we're going to be doing Adam Warlock, the final figure of the main wave of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And Adam Warlock also looks pretty cool, but much like Mantis, doesn't come with anything, again, which is also a shame because they definitely could have added some other really cool swappable limbs or added some energy blast effects or something for Adam here. But anyway, there you have him there on the front of the box. So there's a good image of the figure. On the side is a good image of Adam as he appears in the movie. On the back of the box is another good image of the figure with his 0 accessories and the Build-A-Figure piece he comes with. And that's pretty much it for Adam's packaging. And here is Adam Warlock, and he's ready to go crazy on the Guardians. Pretty good figure, a really good head sculpt, really good likeness of Will. The suit looks really cool. I really like the different textures on the suit and to the mold and all of the different patterns, especially on the cape. The back of the cape looks really cool. The underside of the cape is just pretty plain, although it's got an interesting and unique texture to that as well. Fully articulated head is on a ball joint. Fully articulated shoulders, upper bicep, double jointed elbows, wrist joints, upper torso, hips, upper thigh, double jointed knees, and ankle joints. And that's pretty much it for articulation. And like I said, I wish he came with just something, maybe some swappable hands where he's got this open or grasping hand like gesture, or some swappable hands where they're kind of like a translucent glowing like looking effect where he's using some of his energy blasts or something, just some kind of other accessory maybe to showcase his powers. Just anything at all, really, because as cool as this figure is and as screen accurate as this figure is, that's it. There's nothing else here. There's no other accessories, and as we're paying more for Marvel Legends figures, Hasbro really shouldn't be skimping on the accessories, but it is what it is, I guess. And before we build Cosmo, we're just gonna go ahead and review Groot. So here is Groot as he appears in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Groot has grown up once again. He's nice and big. And I like that he's beefier than the Groot we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. So there's a cool image of Groot there on the front of the box. On the side, you got an image of Groot as he appears in the movie. On this side, you've got another picture of the figure of Groot, which they tried to kind of fit on the side panel there. And on the back, you've got the figure as well as his accessories, including the little baby raccoon that he comes with. Look at that little baby right there. He's so adorable. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the packaging. And here is Groot out of the packaging. And yeah, he looks really good. This is probably my favorite version of Groot so far. I really love the design on Groot, and I really like how beefy he is. And I also really like all the different layers and bits of bark just layered over each other on this figure. First of all, he is fully articulated. Head is on a ball joint. Fully articulated shoulders, and then his shoulder pads made of, different bits of bark here are on a soft rubbery plastic joint there. So they do also articulate a little bit so you can get different poses and get more clearance in those shoulders. Upper bicep, single jointed elbows, wrist joints. Upper torso, hips, upper thigh, single jointed knees, and ankle joints, and ankle rocking joints, of course. He does also come with a swappable pair of fists and his wings that he uses to glide at one point in the movie. I really like the wings. They look really cool. Now, they do come in two different pieces. While they're in the packaging, you just slide that other one in, and then you can just peg them on to his back, and he looks really cool with the wings. And as awesome as this figure is, as great as the detail is and the mold overall, is he $50 awesome? No, Hasbro. This should not have been a $50 figure. Hasbro, I don't know what's been going on with all of your wild and crazy price increases. You can use the inflation excuse all you want, but other toy companies have debunked that excuse. So let's just cut that, shall we? This is not a $50 figure, Hasbro. This is maybe a $35, $40 if we're pushing it dollar figure. But $50, you were way off the mark there. not a $50 figure. I'm sorry, $50 for a 6-inch scale figure, especially a single 6-inch scale figure. And yes, we have a little baby raccoon figurine from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He's cute, he's adorable, he looks awesome, there's some cool little detail on there, but just because we included a pair of wings for Groot and a little baby raccoon that is just a solid figurine does not warrant that we should be charging an additional $25 for this figure. Just doesn't cut the mustard here, in my opinion. Granted, we shouldn't be paying almost $30 a piece for a single Marvel Legends figure, especially ones that come with absolutely no accessories whatsoever. So, Hasbro, you know I love you. You know I like Marvel Legends, and you know I like Marvel Legends, but you are killing this line for so many fans and so many collectors with your outrageous pricing, your lack of detail in some areas, and your lack of accessories with a lot of these figures. I don't know what changes need to be made specifically within the company of Hasbro, but something needs to change because it can't keep going like it is. Otherwise, eventually, I think a lot of collectors are just going to stop buying the product altogether just because A, they're priced out of it, or B, they're just tired of the low quality with the increasing prices. But something's got to give. Something's got to change at some point if you want collectors to continue to invest in Marvel Legends. Otherwise, more collectors, like the many who already have, are going to just keep on switching to McFarlane and DC Multiverse. Because even though while the Todd Father and the McFarlane Toys line is far from perfect, at least the pricing is still reasonable. So figure it out, Hasbro. You know I love you, and you know I love Marvel, but I hate to see the line suffer. Sorry to rant, but sometimes we gotta address these things, right? Alright guys, finally the moment we've all been waiting for. We're gonna assemble Cosmo. And I'm also glad we finally have a Cosmo in the Marvel Legends line. And of the entire wave, I gotta say, Cosmo is the best figure. Also one of only 3 characters to have her first figure in the Marvel Legends 6-inch line, including Adam Warlock and Crowlin. Because while the other figures in this set is really awesome, we've got other good releases of StarLord, Drax, Nebula, Mantis, and even Groot. Even though these are new suits and new molds and new versions of those characters, I was most excited about Cosmo and the other 2 figures out of this set. So here is Cosmo's torso. What we're going to do is first we're going to take her tail right here. That's going to plug in right here on the back. We're going to take this lower part of her dome and we're going to plug that in right here. It does fit in a specific way and it is really easy to figure out. Next up, we're going to take her front leg. We're going to plug that on right there. That goes on a ball joint. We're going to take this rear leg. We're going to plug that on. That goes right there on a ball joint. Same thing over here. Take that front leg, plug that on right there. That goes on a ball joint. Rear leg right here. That goes on a ball joint. And then the head. Her head goes on this ball joint right there on the front. And then you can take this other piece of her dome right here and just kind of put it right there on that hinge. And it's really cool to have the whole thing assembled. Honestly, I kind of don't care for this piece. I kind of like to see her without the outer part of the fishbowl or just without the fishbowl entirely. And she looks really good. A nice sized dog and a very good dog, by the way. There is Cosmo's face sculpt. She looks so good. Heckin' good pupper right there. Fully articulated head is on a ball joint. The neck is also on a ball joint. Shoulders are on a ball joint. Single jointed elbows. You have this upper wrist joint and a lower wrist joint at her front paws. Waist is on a ball joint. Hips are on a ball joint. On the rear, you've got this rear elbow joint or knee joint right there. and one wrist joint on her back paws right there, or ankle joints, whichever you want to call them. And then, of course, her tail is also fully articulated, which is very nice. You can even make it wag side to side, which is also very cool because, well, again, she's a very good dog. Overall, I'm very impressed with Cosmo. Hasbro did a really good job with this Build-A-Figure. Wish she wasn't a Build-A-Figure, but I also kind of get why she is a Build-A-Figure because, as to the point I made earlier, we have a lot of these other characters already in Marvel Legends, so there had to have been a really good incentive on Hasbro's end to get us to get the whole wave, and a really good Build-A-Figure like Cosmo here is a good way to do that. And while I feel Groot should have been the Build-A-Figure over Cosmo because he's a large character, and in my opinion, larger characters should be reserved for Build-A-Figures over smaller or normal-sized characters, there's more value to Cosmo being the Build-A-Figure on Hasbro's end because she's a character that a lot of fans want and haven't had before. But that said, the way Marvel Legends has been going the past few years, it wouldn't surprise me within the next year or so if we just get another updated release of Cosmo individually. That's not a Build-A-Figure, since pretty much every Build-A-Figure from the MCU has been re-released at some point or another, or if it hasn't yet, it will be eventually. So there's also that. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's review featuring the Marvel Legends Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 set of figures. We not only reviewed the whole wave with all of the Build-A-Figure pieces for Cosmo here, but we also reviewed the bonus StarLord figure out of the wave and the Deluxe Groot figure out of the wave. And as impressive as all of these figures are, like I said, it was a really smart choice on Hasbro's part to make a character as anticipated as Cosmo the Build-A-Figure, because as great as these are and as good as they look, if it wasn't for Cosmo, I personally probably wouldn't have gotten the full set myself. And then, you know, you might as well get the Groot too because, well, why not just cover all of them, right? What do you think of this figure set overall, and what did you think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? Personally, I really, really liked it. It's one of the best MCU movies we've had in a long while, and I know a lot of people agree with that. But I would like to know your thoughts as well in the comments below. Stay tuned for more Marvel content, like and subscribe, follow us on social media, and if you're looking for Marvel Legends and other awesome Marvel toys and merch, well, come by our store. It's inside Order 66 Multiverse in the shops at Willow Bend Mall in Plano, Texas. We'll see you guys later. We'll see you another time. It's game over, man.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.